Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Exact Center steering stabilizer here on our 2023 Ford F-53 chassis. If you own a motorhome, you're probably pretty used to feeling like your steering kind of has a lot of play in it. There's a lot of slop. Typically if you're out on the road, you're getting kind of pushed around by those crosswinds, and you're really having to just white knuckle it the whole time just so that you can stay in your lane. Now, there are a few things that you can do to help fix that. One of them being adding in some anti-sway bars to help prevent your frame from shifting side to side as much. And then the next one's going to be adding in your steering stabilizer. Typically, we want to start with that anti-sway bar first. Go ahead and measure your anti-sway bar and see if there's a thicker option out there. The larger the diameter of the bar, the more better performance that you're going to get out of it. Once you get past that point, now we start looking at the steering stabilizer and what that's going to do for your ride quality. So adding that on, it's going to tie into your axle plate, and then it's also going to pull over to your tie rod. And that tie rod is the bar that runs between the two front wheels and keeps them both tracking the same way. So once we correct and bring that in, it's going to help hold it, and it's always going to want to pull the steering wheel back to that place. So not only is it going to help keep you centered, it's also going to help stiffen up the steering so it doesn't feel like you're just constantly turning and not really getting much out of your wheels. Aside from just our handling aspect here, we're also going to be getting a much needed upgrade when it comes to safety. So in the event of a tire blowout, your wheel typically is going to want to jerk on you, and it's going to be kind of all over the place. It's really going to want to throw you into another lane while you're out on that highway. So you really need something to help kind of pull that steering wheel back, and that's exactly what the Exact Center does, because it's always going to be looking for that center position where our steering is going nice and straight. So it's going to help pull it back. It's going to give you that extra stiffness in the steering wheel, so that way it doesn't jerk your hand too far over and potentially cause a much larger accident. As far as installation goes, this one is pretty easy. It's something you can do in probably a half hour, honestly. The big thing here is that you are removing two nuts for your leaf spring pack at the front axle. Those do require quite a bit of torque to go back on, so this is a spot where you might not have the tools to do it. So if that is the case for you, please use our dealer locator, and you can find a shop near you that's going to be equipped to actually torque those two nuts right back to what they need to be at. But aside from that, the rest of this is all stuff you can do with just simple tools you have around your house, because the nuts and bolts that are going to go on the brackets themselves and on the tie rod are all pretty small. The more challenging part really is going to be just the fine-tune adjustment. If you don't have your alignment perfect on your motorhome to begin with, this is going to just exacerbate that issue. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you have your alignment set, and then when you are in the installation phase, you want to make sure that you pull forward with your motorhome and have your wheels chalked straight. That way, when we go and install the steering stabilizer, it's going to grab on at the right spot on that tie rod and not have you starting to lean left or right when you're driving. Now, if you are going to do this yourself, stick around and I'll walk you through the process. Right now, we're getting ready to do our road test to figure out exactly where the center is for our steering wheel, because the whole point of this is that we need to get the steering wheel sitting straight, so that way once we have our stabilizer on, it's not going to be forcing it too far one way or the other. It should be keeping us tracking straight. Now, we've already been under this motorhome. We've done front and rear sway bars, so we've already seen that there is a steering stabilizer on here. Honestly, it's pretty close. It's slightly, like you can see my steering wheel right now, I'm slightly just maybe like 3 to 5 degrees to the right towards our passenger side, and that's pretty straight. I'm tracking right along with the lines that we have painted on our parking lot. So in our case, I'm still going to do the tape test with this so that we make sure that once we pull into the shop, we are still straight. So I'm going to drive in a straight line here, keep my hands off my wheel basically, and just kind of make sure that we are still staying straight. If we do start to kind of curve out of the way, I will kind of correct it a little bit, but the big goal here is that we'll have tape on our dash right at the center, and then tape on our steering wheel. And once we get it straight, I'm going to cut that. We'll leave that there, so that way when we pull into the shop, I'll see this line here, I'll see the line on my steering wheel. I can line them both up as I pull in, and then when we lift up, we don't have to worry about our suspension being off. This might be something where you have to sit here and do it a few times too. So that time, I don't know if I was exactly lined up right. It's really hard to tell because we are so close already. So I'm gonna hit this one more time. And we'll double check. So one thing we can notice here, when I let go of the wheel, it's just staying right there. The Exact Center is always going to be trying to force us right back to how we originally were once we have it set. We should see the wheel start to work its way back once we have it installed. We're pulled into the shop now. I've got our motorhome up on a lift. We made sure that our wheels are straight. If you are planning on doing this, but you know that your motorhome needs an alignment, I would definitely get that done first, because anytime an alignment is done and they're working on your toe in or toe out, they're gonna have to disconnect the steering stabilizer and then readjust it. So you might as well get that done first, make it a whole lot easier on yourself later on when you have to go and do the adjustment portion of this install. So since we already have one on from the factory, I'm gonna be removing that first. I'm gonna start with the tie rod bracket here. Just disconnect each of these 4 nuts so that way we can pop off our U-bolts. Right now it's trying to push because now we loosened up the pressure on it here and it's pinched itself into place. So probably not gonna be able to really get it to move without forcing it back. We'll go ahead and just start taking off the U-bolts nuts as well. So we'll pop these 2 off. That's gonna allow us to drop out this bracket here, and then we're gonna have a new bracket to place there instead that'll connect up with our Exact Center. Now yesterday, I was doing the front and rear sway bars, so I sprayed these down real good with some penetrating oil to help break these loose. It's a good idea to do so beforehand and maybe a little bit during. I'll probably also come back with a wire brush and just scrub out the threads here too so that we don't have anything binding us up. And we'll take these off and we're going to set these aside for right now because we are going to be reinstalling these. But that should give us enough wiggle room to hopefully pop off our bracket here. If not, I'll disconnect it from the bracket over there. There we go. Pops it out. Alright, set that aside. Take our axle bracket and you'll see there's going to be a sticking out just a little bit more. That's going to be facing down. So when we look at the other 2 holes here, we'll have the slotted one going on the center U-bolt side, and then on the outside we're going to have this hole, and we'll pop that right up. And then this is going to be just those same nuts and bolts put back on. Now with this, we want to make sure that we put on some red Loctite, which is also included in your kit. I'm going to just give it a little bit down. Oop. And then we can thread on flat washer and axle nut. I'm going to snug these down with my impact just a bit, but I'm not going to go too tight here because we're also going to come back and torque these down as well. More. There we go. Now we have those snug down, we can torque them down, but this is a case where this is a pretty high torque rating, so it might not be a tool that you own This is a pretty expensive torque wrench just so that we can get up to that torque setting. So this might be a case where you can use that dealer locator that I referenced before. Just enter in your zip code and you can find a shop. And at worst case scenario here, all they're doing is throwing that back on for you and then retorquing it for you. It'll make it a whole lot easier of an install for yourself and kind of cut down on your expenses, because it could probably take them 2 seconds to pop that off and put it right back on for you. So with all that said, I'm going to get this torqued down and we can move on to our next step. Next, we're going to install our tie rod bracket a little bit loosely here. So essentially this is going to be just a U-bolt on both sides here, holding this on, clamping it to our tie rod. Now, this needs to sit on the bottom of the tie rod with the U-bolts over it, just like so. And our Exact Center is going to sit right on top of that, and that's going to keep it level between this connection point and our connection point over at the U-bolts. Now, before we go ahead and put this on, we want to make sure that we are putting red Loctite in a small portion of this. It'll have like a little note in the instructions, and it says to use it on all hardware included in this kit. So just go ahead and slather some of that on. And these U-bolts are also going to have a flat washer and a lock nut once we have them in place. I'm going to hold up my bracket. And like I said, we're doing this loosely because we still have to figure out exactly where this needs to sit. Now I'm going to snug it up just a bit, but I'm going to leave it loose enough that we can still slide it back and forth on here. Make sure you're doing it evenly on the U-bolts too. Alright, a little too snug. Back that off just a bit. There we go. Now our next set of bolts, it's going to be the longer bronze ones. We're going to have a flat washer on that. It's going to have a second flat washer once we go through our Exact Center and our mounting brackets, and then a lock nut to finish it off. But before we get that in place, once again, we're going to put some red Loctite on here. And we're going to drop this in. I'm going to start over on our axle side here. So I'm going to drop that right into the plate. Have that come through, flat washer, and then our lock nut. When we start this off, we want to make sure that we have the Roadmaster sticker facing out towards the front of the vehicle. As you make adjustments, that's going to move, but that's just how we want to start. So same thing over here, we're going to drop in our bolt, have that come through our bracket on the bottom here. Line it up. There we go. Flat washer and our lock nut. And I like to kind of play with it a little bit and get the bar pretty level here before we tighten down. Pretty level here. I'm going to just tighten this up enough to where it's not going to move on me anymore. And then we'll come back with our torque wrench. Now we can snug down our 1/2-inch hardware as well. I'm going to be using a 3/4 inch socket and wrench. And now we can torque these down. Now one thing you might want to do is just double check, make sure that your jam nut is actually up against the ring nut. So to do this, I'm going to be using a 21mm wrench, and you're going to have to make sure it's kind of skinny because there's not really a lot of room between the body, which are the silver tubes here, and then the ring nut, which is this black portion right here with the eyelet for our bolt. We want to make sure that this is always locked up against our ring nut when we're not adjusting it, and we only want to unlock one of these at a time. So if I'm making adjustments, I'm only going to do this side and then relock it, and then come back over to this side, relock it when I'm done with it. Now, if you're having it pull more towards the driver's side, you're going to want to shorten the bar here, or if it's pulling towards the passenger side, you're going to want to lengthen it. And to do that, what we're looking for is, as we unlock that jam nut, we're going to turn this, and you'll see more threads or less threads. And typically what you're only going to do is just unlock that just a bit, and then line up the faces on the jam nut with the ring nut, and then you can turn it so that it's just one face over. So just like that, that would be one increment, and then we would just relock this back up and be good to go. Go test drive again, see if that's enough. Typically, if you're going to do it on one side though, also over on the other side, I should have said that as well. But now I'm going to relock this back because we haven't tested this just yet, so I'm going to see where we're at just right out of the box, because honestly, this motorhome was tracking really good before we even installed this. All right, so like I said, we're going to drop this down. We'll do our testing. This is a point where you're going to have to probably do it multiple times, because this isn't something where you can just easily flip a switch and be ready to go and test over and over and over. This is something where you're going to have to get up under the vehicle each time. There's a lot of hot components. So you can see right here we have 2 exhaust lines running out. So if you're not careful, this will happen to you. It happened the last time I did one of these, so be careful. And also, if you start to see the gasket, so I'm twisting it up, as you turn these are going to get all kind of ruffled up. If it gets too ruffled up, just pull it off, and then you can place it back on when you're done. Just make sure you at least get past this line right here, so that way that gasket stays on. So I typically try to run that little line that we have right into that, and should be good to go. We've gone around a little bit in our parking lot. We've also gone on the highway here. It's really good if you can kind of get at that 20 mile per hour, do some testing, and then also up at that 60 mile per hour range, because there's a big difference between parking lot driving and actual highway driving. So I've done it probably about 4 or 5 times. I've adjusted this at this point now, and it's really just been like a back and forth kind of needle mark here. We're not really making too much of adjustments just because this is such a new motorhome. The steering column's already really stiff to begin with. We're not getting that same drastic day and night change like we'd see with a much older motorhome where the steering is pretty loose. So in this case, it is trying to pull it back quite a bit. Get a little bit of a turn. You see it's already starting to pull back. The old one wasn't doing that at all. It was just kind of keeping it exactly where it was and just stiffening up here. So with this trying to pull back and find its center, that is going to be a major help with preventing any issues when it comes to sway here, or when we're trying to really hold on tight and we're white knuckling, we're going to have a lot less of that. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of Roadmaster's Exact Center steering stabilizer here on our 2023 Ford F-53 chassis. And if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right steering stabilizer for your F-53 chassis, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.